Hi and welcome to Four Chats. I'm Matt.
And I'm B. With music events such as Glastonbury being cancelled, gig and festival lovers have been left disappointed.
But this also means the musicians and artists have lost out on their work. We talked to Matt Wanstall from the Musicians Union about help available.
And music radio presenter Dean Jackson will be telling us about a project aimed at bringing musicians together.
We also have an easy sourdough recipe to show you. But first, Kakam! Ah.
Anyway, let's chat to Matt Wanstall. He's a regional organiser for the Musicians Union.
Hey Matt.
How you doing, guys? How's it going?
Not bad, not bad. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Pretty busy with work, but yeah, trying to stay sane, really.
So how do you think the industry's been affected by the pandemic?
Most obviously financially, because many musicians, many of our members work on a kind of day-to-day, week-to-week basis. The vast majority of them are self-employed. They have very little protection to that extent. So if you had shows booked, generally those shows were cancelled with immediate effect. From a legal standpoint, quite often you can't even get money back, even deposits. Usually those shows have been rearranged or cancelled. In either of those cases, you're not going to be due any money that's going to help you out right now. And of course, in some cases, people are owed money on invoices from a month or 2 months previously. And sometimes they've had problems getting that money out of organisations who themselves have cash flow problems. So, yeah, absolutely drastic. From, small venues through to big tours, theatres through to concert halls. Across the spectrum, every genre is obviously affected. So, absolutely massive, yeah, and very, very drastic.
And what is the biggest concern you're hearing from musicians?
Well, I mean, initially financially, because, apart from those that are directly affected by COVID-19, it's very much a case of how do I survive this week, next week, the following month? We're only just now having the self-employed support starting to come online. But one of the big problems for lots of our members and lots of musicians is that a number of them, for various reasons, aren't eligible to apply for that. You'll find musicians who pretty much do the same job. Some of them are getting nearly all of their income supported, and the next person will get absolutely nothing. So we've dealt with musicians in the same bands who do some additional work, and because the additional work in one case one's employed and the other isn't, even though they earn similar amounts of money and doing exactly the same work, one's getting nothing, the other's pretty much getting what they normally earn. So it's really, really difficult. It's very, very random. That's the big flaw at the moment, and for lots of musicians, that's the problem. I mean, on that, we've got the Musicians Union's had a campaign that we're running at the moment to make sure that no musician gets left behind. So that's a mixture of lobbying government and getting people to write to their MPs, for example. But unfortunately, at the moment, we've not had any kind of new news on the self-employed. We've had just this week kind of an extension to furlough through to October. But what we haven't had at this point is anything additional for self-employment. We don't know. There's been no change, basically.
What financial support is there available to musicians right now?
Okay, so we just talked about a little bit in terms of the government support for self-employed. There's also government support for business. So if you, for example, run a recording studio and you pay business rates, you should be able to get some money back from your local council. Usually that's around £10,000. But again, that will be based on the business rates payments. There's also other things like bounce back loans. So again, for our members that get in touch, we look at their individual situation and look at the options for them. But more widely, within our industry, there's a number of schemes. So we ourselves, for members, straight away we realised that there was a cash flow problem for members. So we took £1 million out of our reserves, and members could very, very quickly apply for £200. So it's not going to fix everything, but it just meant in the first 2 or 3 weeks, members could go £200, here's some money to buy food, etc. It was literally a few questions, very, very basic, and they could apply for that. That obviously only applies to members. More widely, PRS has a similar thing for anybody that has claimed PRS money as a PRS member, as a writer, so they have their own fund. Perhaps most fundamentally, Help Musicians. So Help Musicians are a big charity, and I think they've put out something like £8 million so far in loans to musicians. So I don't think right now you can apply, but I understand there's a new fund about to come online at some point soon. On our website, we've got a whole COVID-19 advice section, and it's got about 15 different categories. One of them is financial, so you don't need to be a member to do that. You can literally log onto it, click the financial hardship menu, and that gives you all the links that you need.
Do you think on a wider scale there is enough being done to support musicians?
We're reaching the point where most people will acknowledge our industry is likely to be one of the very last to be put back into operation. Festivals, concerts, large gatherings of people, nightclubs, etc. it's the highest risk category in many ways. The problem is, as they start to get people back to work and expect businesses to pick up some of the tab, they can't expect, in terms of the music industry and the entertainment industry more widely, those organisations to be able to pick up a tab, or musicians and creatives to be able to exist forever. There needs to be some acknowledged sector-specific support. So up to now, we would say probably we've been treated roughly in line with other people, but there needs to be now at the point where something more specific needs to be done, yeah.
How significant is it for people in the industry to be part of the union?
Well, obviously, I'd say very, very significant. Very important. We've got 32,000 members, all of whom are musicians in various ways, shape, or form. And actually, as a collective, as a unit acting together, we're much, much stronger. So going back to, one of the biggest things in the last year or two has been Brexit. Now, whatever you think about Brexit, one of the key things about the union is we think that's bad for musicians because there's problems massively in terms of being able to tour, in terms of having to take equipment across borders, in terms of carnets, taxes. It's very, very complicated in a way that most people don't experience or don't appreciate. So that's been our position. That's been a big campaign. If you're not in a union, who's making those arguments for you? And the answer is I don't think there is anyone else. And in a situation like this, it really brings it into focus. It's like, who's going to lobby on the behalf of the music industry? Well, it's us on behalf of our 32,000 members. Either individually or part of a collective, we've got a degree of power to influence government and influence policy. We're very small compared to some huge industries, but at least we've got that voice. If you're not part of that, you don't have any representation, in short.
So for anyone that's not a member of the music union, what would your advice be to them in this time? Well,
obviously, it's very, very difficult. From the Musicians Union point of view, I'd say take a look at our website because you don't need to be a member to access lots of the information on there. We've got specific advice around COVID-19, but all manner of issues. So people are also looking at other aspects in terms of recording, streaming, copyright. There's loads of advice on the website. And actually, that's there for free, so you can see some of the kind of stuff that we're doing. You can also join, and obviously, if you can afford to join, I'd say, obviously go and do that. We've got a special offer, I suppose you call it at the moment. For anybody that's never been a member before, you can join for £1. So you pay £1, then you get access to the full benefits of membership, and then you only pay direct debits in the second half of the year. So in effect, it's half-price membership. And we appreciate that people haven't got much money at the moment, but it does mean you can pay £1 now, and it'll be 6 months before you had to pay anything else, and everything else is open to you, including all the insurances.
Well, honestly, thank you so much. I think all of that advice is really helpful.
No worries at all.
Coming up, we'll be talking to Dean Jackson from the BBC. But before all that, Kaka!
Oh, that cat's quite cute.
Yeah. Now it's time for the recipe. So last episode, I showed you how to make that sourdough starter. Now it's time to make the actual bread with just 4 extra ingredients. Roll the recipe. You will need a big bowl. Pour 250 grams of flour. Add 150 grams of your sourdough starter. Add 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 125 mils of water. Mix together until it's all stuck together. Generously flour your surface, knead the dough for roughly 10 minutes, place in a lightly oiled bowl and cover with a damp tea towel and leave for 3 hours to rise. Heavily flour a tea towel and place the dough onto it. Fold the tea towel around the dough and place into another bowl. Leave this for another 2 to 3 hours to prove. Preheat your oven to 230 degrees or 200 degrees for fan assisted, and place the bread dough onto the baking tray. Score the top of the bread with a sharp knife. Once the oven is preheated, place the tray into the oven and bake for 30 to 40 minutes. And there you have it, an easy sourdough loaf.
I definitely recommend giving it a try, and one thing we've learned is that practice does make perfect.
And it's so easy. Let's talk to Dean Jackson, who is a BBC radio presenter. Hey, Dean.
Hi.
Hi.
So, in your opinion, as somebody that's very passionate about music and, works within that environment, how do you feel musicians and the industry have been affected by the pandemic?
Well, the biggest impact has been gigs, of course, which have gone, gigs and festivals. And that's the real hard side, I think, for musicians to cope with, because it is a tremendous source of revenue for them through the summer. So that's really the downside of it. It's playing live, and not only the financial side of it, I think the emotional side of it. I think as a musician, playing live is really what so many bands are about, and they thrive on getting their music out there to an audience. So they're missing audiences, and I think people are missing going to gigs as well. I'm frantically missing it at the moment. I mean, don't get me wrong, these are awful times. There are far worse things happening, but the fact that we can't go to gigs is the big downside. But there are positives too.
Have you seen an increase in the submissions for BBC Introducing?
Massively, yeah. One of the big positives is the fact that musicians have got a bit more time on their hands, many of them. The jobbing musicians who were having to go touring and all the rest of it find themselves on lockdown, particularly solo musicians where they're in a house on their own. They're able to write more, record more, and their productivity has gone sky high through the roof. It's tougher for bands, of course, because they have to get music to each other. But even that is increasing over the past 2 or 3 weeks. So I would go as far as to say that at the moment we're getting record numbers of uploads to BBC Introducing in the East Midlands, where I'm based anyway. I can't speak for all of the other shows, but certainly as far as the East Midlands is concerned, the amount of music coming in is ridiculously high, hundreds of tracks a month, hundreds and hundreds, and I'm wading through them. And the quality is there as well, and it's now we're a little way into quarantine. It's noticeable that the quality of the music that's coming through from people who have been locked down, if you like, is getting better. So they're refining their skills, their recording techniques, and so on. And it's actually getting better. So huge quantities, and the quality is rising too.
Fantastic.
Oh, amazing.
And in terms of this, of BBC Introducing within the East Midlands and your show yourself, you've been reacting to this with a new project. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we realised early on that there were some musicians who were living in isolation, who would normally be sending music in, and they couldn't because they didn't have the skill set to do everything. So you might have an amazing vocalist, for example, who's not a great guitarist and wanted to record something, an acoustic piece. And so we decided it would be quite good to kind of marry up those two people. So to find a guitarist that can't sing, for want of a better explanation, and a vocalist who wanted to find somebody to play guitar. And that's expanded. So we've now got people who make beats, we've got producers who are making beats and asking us to find vocalists. We've got vocalists asking us to find backing tracks. We've got a couple of studios have come on board offering to mix things, and people, even songwriters actually. So it's gone far beyond what we expected. Even some songwriters have said, "Oh, have you got anybody that could sing this song for me?" So we've got a couple of hundred people who've registered with us so far. I say registered like it's a big thing. It's not. It's just sending an email, basically. And we've just been pairing them up. And I'm looking forward to hearing what comes out of that. And the other interesting thing, I think, is that the whole idea of isolation is that you are locked away on your own. And we decided to kind of turn that on its head and introduce musicians who are from, I don't know, the Peak district of Derbyshire to ones who are in Nottingham City Centre, or somebody who's working in Leicester City Centre from one of the Leicester studios, introducing them to someone from Ashbourne. So people who wouldn't have normally come into contact are now meeting through this pandemic, which I think has got to be a positive thing in the long run.
Yeah, that's amazing, actually, because I think that's one thing about music, isn't it? We can all relate to it, and I suppose if you're musical and you're kind of able to communicate with people that you would have never met normally, I mean that's just an amazing thing, really. It
is, yeah, and it's bringing a new skill set as well, and also we've been able to meet people, to marry people who are into the same genres of music. There was one grime artist from Leicester who said I could really do the Leicester grime scene, R&B scene is healthy, but actually I could do with really bouncing some ideas off someone from further afield. So we're able to match them up with someone from Nottingham. So it's not just a different skill set; it's bringing different influences. And I think there's this sort of cross-pollination, meeting people who are doing the same sort of thing as you, but from another city. It's really healthy, actually.
Absolutely. I think during this time, I mean, what you've demonstrated and what you've explained there, it is a real opportunity to stay creative. And I think the message here is do stay creative.
I think that's true. I think it is true. And actually, I think what will be worse than the lockdown that we have is if you get to the end of it, when normality kicks in, whenever that will be, and we're all looking forward to that. If you get to the end of that and you look back and think, hang on, I had those months where I could have been amazingly productive but actually did nothing, I think that will be actually quite a strain on the mind if we get there, and that's what people are thinking. So I would encourage people for their mental health when we come out of this, actually, to be making the most of it, because otherwise you're going to have that sense of the missing months of your life.
I think it's fair to say as well, the music scene will we appreciate it as a nation, all very much so, but I think we'll appreciate it all the more after this, like you say, not having the festivals and gigs.
I think there are so many things that we will realise that we've taken for granted for a very long time. The fact that you can just hop in the car and drive 3 or 4 miles and stand in a green field for a weekend is something that has been taken as a God-given right, hasn't it, forever? And now we realise that it's much more fragile and delicate than we ever thought. And I think that we will never regard things the same way again. And I think we will appreciate it far, far more and just be grateful for those opportunities that we do get in the future.
It's been lovely speaking with you, and good luck with the project, and we'll definitely point people within the East Midlands to that project as well.
Okay, it's great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
I love the idea of matchmaking musicians around the country. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's a brilliant idea. Well, that's it from us for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Stay strong and safe, beautiful people.